Hi everyone. I'm Grandmaster Bryan Smith at the St. Louis Chess Club, and this is romantic chess. This is chess from up to about the year 1880. So for this week, I'm going to show a couple of funny games, and I think if we have time, also a couple of problems where the whole game wasn't worth showing, but the final combination was good. So first, we'll start off with a game Adolf Anderssen against Max Lange. Now, Adolf Anderssen is a player who played the Evergreen game and the Immortal game, two of the most famous Romantic era chess games. Well, I'm not showing those because they're so well known, but this is a lot less well known, and he lost this game against another player of the day, not quite as much remembered, but also his name is, for instance, the Max Lange attack is in some two knights gambit, was gone down in history. Anyway, this is his game as black against Anderssen. So Anderssen started off with e4, e5. Knight f3, knight c6. By the way, this game was 1859, Breslau. And it was some sort of informal match or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, so bishop b5. So actually a normal opening, no king's gambit this time, no Evans gambit, a Spanish, a Ruy Lopez, which was one of the most ancient openings, perhaps the second most ancient after the bishop's opening that we know of. Knight at e4. So it's we're going to see, if we get to it, one of the problems by a player named Henry Bird, and this defense is named after Henry Bird. This is Bird's defense. So black's idea is moves his knight twice, but he changes the pawn structure, and leaves this bishop hanging out on b5. Of course, the pawn structure is slightly inferior for black now. White has this kind of a clear plan on the king side with f4 in some cases. Also c3 could sometimes lead to this pawn being exchanged and white gaining a lead in development and central superiority. But there are points for black as well. Of course, this pawn, in the meantime, slows white's knight's development on c3, and it opens up the e-file. It opens up some possibility to hit the bishop, and queen often comes to h4. So, okay, white went bishop c4. Who knows if white plays d3 right away? Here, well, okay, d3 possible. But if white plays c3, with this plan of undermining the pawn, what would black play here? Yeah, Beck?
Queen g5.
Queen g5, yeah. So this is first trap of the opening. Queen can come out, attacks the bishop, and attacks g2. And white doesn't want to play bishop f1. So castles is the main move, but white played bishop c4, anticipating these attacks on the bishop. c6, also that kind of thing, and probably intends c3. So black played knight f6, attacking the pawn on e4. And here, I guess normal move would be either castles or d3, but white decided to play e5, which is a move which I think nowadays wouldn't be preferred so much, because it's this whole thing looks a little shaky. More likely d3. If castles, I guess the idea, knight takes c4, bishop f7. I'm not sure how all this turns out. Queen h5, white gets the piece back, I guess. Yeah, gets the piece back because you can queen d5 check, or if king f6, then queen f3, and king e5, I don't believe that. So, of course, black doesn't have to take the pawn. He can, but anyway, so white played e5. So black played d5, of course, hitting back. This is a typical method in open games. Knight e4 we don't want to play because of things like bishop d5, I'm not sure is even the most punishing, because knight g5. Knight e4. Bishop f7 was what I was first thinking about. Yeah, maybe bishop d5, maybe maybe even just castles. At queen f3, there's d5. Black defends because e takes d6, knight takes d6. Bishop f7 is possible. And queen f3, knight f6. Takes, queen takes. I'm not sure that's... I think we just, after knight e4, we just, we'll just leave it hanging, castle. And now black will, face some of the same problems. But anyway, that's... Black played this typical reply, d5. This is the best reply. You get a foothold in the center. Attack the bishop on c4. If white takes on f6, black takes here. And these two pawns are actually very strong. And black has two bishops on a wide open board. If, let's say, black's threatening to take, if check, bishop e6 goes nowhere. If takes, bishop takes g7, or perhaps we throw in queen e7 is also possible, throw in queen e7, but in any case, it's a very good position for black. He's got two bishops on an open board, and these pawns are extremely strong. Now this whole pattern reminds me of what's called the Max Lange attack, but it's a different position. Knight is on f3 and knight on c6, and so it's a different situation. But that one's makes, and white's already castled in that one also. So bishop's on c5. So we included several more moves in that case. But here white played bishop b3, and black now did something kind of wild here. Normal move would be knight g4, and actually black stands very well here. This is just a great position for black. Pawn on e5 is hanging, and queen h4 might become in response to, in various moves. So white doesn't stand that well here, but black made a really wild, creative, but also a little bit too abrupt move. Bishop g4, hitting the white queen. Well, white queen is trapped, except white has f3, and now two pieces are under attack. I'm sure that Lange took this into account because now he played knight e4. Otherwise, he's just losing a piece, right? For not enough compensation. So he jumped into this, forking his own pieces. It's already only move 8, and already things are getting a little bit jovial here. So what do you think white's going to do here? Castle. We got a castle, because if we take on g4, queen h4 check. Yeah. And so we're not going to do that. F g3, of course, what does black play? Knight takes g3, and white's losing. Yeah. Yeah. So now the rook's hanging, and of course h takes g3, queen takes h1. White has two pieces for a rook, but his king's being bumped around the board. There's going to be another queen g2, queen takes g3 with check, and so that's a lot of pawns and continuing attack. So that's not good for white. So he castled. Okay, I'm going to turn off this thing for a second so we don't see. Black now, okay, his bishop and knight are both under attack. Lange probably saw this far. These guys were not dumb people. They didn't have the benefit of several centuries of chess knowledge. They're finding their own way in the opening, but they calculated and they came up with ideas, and they had and even if they didn't have a lot of books, they had a natural sense, and he didn't just fork his own pieces for nothing. What do you think black's idea was? Yeah? Bishop c5, okay, that's an idea, but white could easily shut that down with just d3, right? And now, not that we need to attack the knight on e4 again, but now we're definitely forking those two pieces, and we're winning one of them, and I don't see anything at all for black here. Knight c3 you could try, but then that's the kind of move that someone might think about, but that's not going to lead anywhere because we just blocked the check, and now we're going to win another piece. So bishop c5 we want to do, but we don't want to give white chance for d3. So what do you think? D3, yeah. So that's what Lange played. However, white has a refutation which he didn't find. What do you think white played here? Or what do you think white should play here, rather? This is a little bit harder. Yeah?
Maybe queen one.
Queen e1, yeah, very good. Queen e1. In order to see this move, we have to recognize what black's intention is, which we'll see in a moment. But queen e1 would refute it. So what's the point? Why queen e1? Yeah? Same person who answered before.
Remove
Yeah.
the pin and now
To remove the pin, but there's another, I mean, we can take the bishop right away, right? That's what he did. Yeah?
how to control F2.
Partially, but not exactly. There's, yeah?
H4 from queen.
Kind of, yeah, that too, but also one more square that is actually the most important to control, yeah?
I was going to say to avoid a fork on F2.
Not exactly, but that's also, we'll see that we need to control the square G3, okay? Not so much F2, not so much H4, but G3, but that'll become clear in a moment, okay? So instead of that, queen e1, white would have refuted black's attack, but white actually took on G4. So now, of course, check on C5. King H1. What do you think black played? I kind of gave it away now. Knight G3 now, right. Queen H4 would not have worked here. It wasn't so much to control H4 or to control F2, because knight F2 check, just white's already up a piece. So if knight F2, white's going to take, black's going to take, and here white's got two pieces for a rook, but its king's not being chased around. In fact, it's after queen F3, it's white who's going to be with the initiative, attacking the bishop and also the pawn on D5 and the pawn on D3. White's just winning here. We're up, white's up a lot of material. So not that, and not even queen H4. What would white do after queen H4?
Queen E1.
Queen E1 would allow queen trade, and then knight F2 check, and then take on C2, hitting the knight, and after bishop takes the knight D3, king, maybe even queen E1 is possible. Actually, queen E1, knight F.
Well, queen and bishop.
Bishop F2. Maybe on bishop.
Yeah, bishop F2, right? Yeah, bishop, very good. Bishop F2. Well, even then, rook takes, knight takes, king E1, knight H3, king F1. But it's still, maybe queen E1 even, I haven't checked that, but there's no point in, because there's a better defense that ends it all for black. Yeah?
Queen F3.
Queen F3, yeah. Now all that stuff is not working. Knight F2 just allows rook takes. And white is just, again, the same thing as before. The ending is bad for black. If queen F2, we trade queens, we take the pawn on D5, and then white should win pretty easily. Two pieces against a rook, and also an extra pawn for white in addition. And bishop takes F2 is no different. Black runs out of attackers. So knight to G3. However, first, not giving a white the chance to do those things. So white has to take it. What do you think black plays here?
Queen G5.
Queen G5, yeah. H5 is also tempting, but I guess after H5, white keeps it all closed with G5. Well, yeah, take is going to be met by Queen G. Take's going to be met by Queen G5, and white's losing, right? Takes Queen G5. G4 mate, Queen H4. So yeah, but G5 white would play. H4, G4. But eventually didn't work, right? And also we don't have to play G3. I just did that for comedic effect. But Queen F3 would be good too, right? Huh?
No one wants to take the pawn.
We could even take on H3. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. No one wants to take the pawn, but we could once it gets to H3, right? So, okay. So that didn't work. But Queen G5, locking that pawn in place and threatening what? What does black threaten? Queen H6 mate, right? So white has to do something about that. There's only one move. Rook F5, right? Only move. What do you think black plays here? Queen H6, Rook H. If Queen H6, Rook H5. H6 is a funny move, but unfortunately for black in chess, captures are not obligatory. So white would do something else, like I don't know.
Try to get his queen over there somehow?
Yeah, after h6, I'm sure white can have, with the extra tempo, probably can defend somehow.
Queen G1.
Queen G, yeah, but black would, yeah, Queen G1 is, Queen G1 is actually working. I'm not sure it's the only defense, but because white already had an extra piece, right? To be two pieces against a rook. So after, but h5, right? So black played h5. We all saw that. So h5. So now white had to take because the threat is to take on g4. Of course, if white takes the queen, then it's going to be checkmate. h takes g4 and checkmate next. So g takes h5. What does black play here? Queen takes rook. Remember, the rook is x-raying on h5, so rook takes isn't going to work on h5. We've got to take the rook. Now, still white has two pieces for a rook, right? Unless I miscounted. Yeah, two pieces for a rook. So he plays g4. Has to stop rook takes h5 or queen takes h5. Now what does black play? Queen g5 is going to give white time now. Queen f2, Queen f2, yeah, maybe winning also. I think at this point there's, but I'm not, let's see, so Queen f2, I don't want to ruin this by having there be more than one bit win, but I can't do anything about it. Maybe Queen f3, but then Queen e1 and Queen g1 minimum.
G1 is mate.
Huh?
Queen G1 is
Queen g1 is mate, yeah, very good. There might be more than one win here. g3, I guess, but it's definitely winning for black, right? So,
black can just take.
yeah, black can just take. It's definitely winning for black, right? So, I mean, it should be, okay, so you're going to take Queen f1. Take on g4. Yeah, it's all over. I mean, what can we do? It's, but that's the thing about these. A lot of these games are just going to be. Instead, black found a much more dramatic way to do it.
Rook takes pawn, yeah.
Rook takes pawn again, right? Pawn takes, and now
Queen f2. Queen g5.
Queen f2. White can go g4.
Pretend mate.
How? g4, Queen h4, King g2.
No, I think not. Queen g1.
Queen's guarding g1 at this moment. So yeah, I mean, if Queen f2, I guess g4. I don't know about this, but there's no need to sacrifice the rook. That's not why you sacrifice the rook. There's a better move. Queen e4, yeah, pinning the pawn on g2. So now there's no g3, no g4 moves. Queen h4 mate is a threat. So white played Queen f3. There's no other. Queen h4, yeah. Queen e1. Bishop g1, yeah. Not letting the king get out, and then white resign because, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, so if we look at this position, yeah, when I looked, I saw black has multiple ways to win, of course, but I hoped that no one would just point out the obvious Queen f2. But in a certain way, this is forcing also. This is more forcing because we can look at this is forced, and clearly after Queen e4, white doesn't have as many defenses as it would have after Queen f2, even if the ones after Queen f2 also fail.
Look at that development.
Hmm?
Look at the development for white.
What's that?
White's development.
Yeah, the development. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, yeah, we're learning about some development here. So, okay, so was a pretty nice game, I guess, kind of in a way.
Those old guys could calculate.
Yep. Okay, let's see another one. Now this one also, unfortunately, has the same aesthetic flaw. Okay, I don't exactly remember all the first few. This is the same kind of aesthetic flaw. That black had a simple win, but it's also a very nice game. So this was Fischer versus Steinitz. So your ears don't deceive you. Fischer did not return or did not go back in time, or Steinitz didn't come forward in time to the match that everyone wished would happen, but this is someone with the letter C missing from his name, Fischer, with an SH. So it's from a simul, 1872. So Steinitz was black. This is the first world champion.
Wait, who's doing this one?
What's that?
Who's Steinitz?
Steinitz had black. Yeah. Oh, you can't see it. Yeah, Steinitz had black.
Steinitz is real, Fischer is fake.
Fischer was just was not Bobby Fischer, obviously. This was someone from that time period who was just an amateur, presumably. Bishop c4, so he played the bishop's opening. f5. Not a move Steinitz would probably play in tournament game, although he played some kind of wacky opening sometimes, even though he was known as a very serious defender, liked to take a pawn and survive. In his early days, he was actually a very sharp attacking player in the same style as Anderssen and these other guys. Even later, he liked to play the Steinitz gambit, e4, e5, f4, e takes f4, knight c3, queen h4, king e2. So here he decided to play f5. He wants the center. Okay, it's a dubious move to put it lightly, but White decided to refute it immediately with bishop takes g8, which was probably not the best choice. Giving up a bishop, of course, he wants to check on h5, but that's not really sufficient justification. Black took.
Can't castle.
Black can't castle, this is correct. But he doesn't need to in this game. In fact, even his king will take part in the attack. Within 24 moves, his king will be attacking the white king. White took on f5. Okay, check on h5 might have been White's intention, but then he realized that this was really not that good for him. Or he could take on e4 also. Knight c6 with the idea of knight e4, or Black could just take on e4. But the white queen on h8 is maybe a slight bit of an annoyance, but it's also not, it's all by itself, so it's not going to really cause too much harm for Black, and meanwhile Black's going to take over the rest of the board. I also like just developing knight c6, knight d4. Is even more in the spirit of things. White took on f5, winning a pawn this way. Black went d5. Now queen h5. I mean, if he doesn't do this, Black takes back on f5 and he gets a dream position. 2 bishops and the center. And while he can't castle, he'll probably castle queenside or leave his king in the center for a little while, but that's fine. But White's also not going to. His king faces an uncertain future. Queen h5 check. g6. White took on g6. So if he took on h7, Black would go rook g7, followed by bishop takes f5. And again, that dream position. In that case, Black's down a pawn, but again, with White's queen being where's the queen going? Well, okay, it has to go here, and then bishop takes f5 probably. And Black has lots of compensation for the pawn. He's going to play knight c6, develop the queen, castle queenside. White's own queen can even be trapped in the future. And also c2 is a target, and Black has all those other advantages. So White took on g6, Black took back with a rook, and now White most likely noticed queen takes e5 is met by, who knows, this is not too hard. Check. Rook e6, right? So if he took on h7, he could take on h7, but then probably bishop f5 again. Probably bishop f5. And again, White's queen is running all over the place. Black has development center for compensation for, now it's 2 pawns, but I still like Black's position. His king will get to the queen side. Also g2 is hanging him. Maybe he can take on g2, but then there's queen h5 check, so I didn't want to allow that. Just do this. You can also have rook h6 as well. And if queen g8, bishop e6 with even more tempi gain. And if queen goes back to d3, then Black could continue. I would probably just play this, though, I guess. Anyway, so knight e2 White played, deciding probably just now it's time to develop a little bit. Black played knight c6, developing a piece, and White castled. So his king got out of the center, but that's not going to be everything. That's not going to be enough to keep White safe. King can come under attack on the king side as well, especially with Black having open lines there. Bishop g4. gaining a move attacking the queen. White's invited, in fact, forced to take on h7, but his queen now is going to be buffeted all over the board. Took on h7, rook h6. Black saves the rook. Queen's under attack, and the knight is also under attack on e2, so the only move was queen d3. Now black continued. Let's close this now and see so we can start doing some problems. So queen d3. So okay. Black began with e4. Queen e3 is forced. Now what should black play? We're going to keep the initiative going. I think white has 2 pawns, right? Black really needs to get some attack. So what do you think? Queen h4. Okay, queen h4 is probably pretty good, but after h3, it's now what? One person at a time. Yes, in the back. I can't see really very well, but yeah. Bishop f3, but it's not forcing. You don't have to take it. Maybe then knight. Maybe just. I mean, it's probably pretty bad for white also. I mean, maybe d3. Bishop c5 and bishop g2. I don't know. Bishop c5. I have queen takes h6 actually. So. Bishop d6, now I take the rook. Yeah, I've opened up a little something there. Rook g6. Knight f4. d4, knight takes g6. Hitting the queen. Maybe the last move d4 I was thinking about. But anyway, it's not as good as what he played. We don't need to be so fancy. He found a way to develop his attack further without needing to get involved in all that stuff. So it's actually, we think like, well, this is just a crushing position. It looks really crushing, but the way Steinitz played in a simul, by the way, it was actually pretty accurate. I don't know, queen h4 I'm sure is good for black as well. But he found a very clear way of developing an initiative which was absolutely forced and destroyed white's position. In the back, yeah?
Bishop d6.
Bishop where?
D6.
Bishop d6, I can take the rook, right? Yeah. He made a move which was actually on this, sorry. I think I erased all the moves.
Queen d6.
Oh no, he did this, okay, sorry. Don't look, okay. Yeah, he did this first, but now in this position, what I was saying, we were looking at bishop f3. We don't need to do all this fancy stuff. He just took on e2.
That's what I'm saying, bishop takes knight, and then you've got...
And now?
Knight d4.
Knight d4. So queen has to guard c2, I mean, and save itself. So queen d1 is forced. Knight f3 check. Okay, so this is, it's not too hard to see, but still, we wanted to play bishop f3. So here, now this is the point where you might find your queen f2 move, like in the last one, which unfortunately puts a blemish on the aesthetics of the game. So we can find that move, or you can find the move Steinitz plays. What do you think? They're both equally good. Yeah? Queen f4, now we can, just a second, queen f4. Queen f4 might also be good.
I like queen f4.
Queen f4, yeah, this is also,
I like queen f4, buddy.
yeah, this one's also, this
Takes f3.
queen takes f3, yeah, this one.
This is
Yeah, so this is obviously winning for black also. This is very simple. That's one of the queen f2 moves. And you said queen takes h3? Very good. That's the move he played. It can't be criticized because it also wins, even though queen f4, or there's one other move too, which was the first move I said okay, queen g4 also is absolutely no defense for white, so rook takes h3. What's that? I can't hear you very well.
Why didn't you play queen d4? You can just take
Bishop d6.
There's too many people talking at once, I'm sorry. And I can't hear so well from back there. Queen, Bishop d6, we don't need. What's that? I mean, maybe that black's winning after that too, but we get this move in.
And then queen.
Then it's a checkmate.
Then the
It's
second
Yeah, then it's
king.
checkmate. You're right. Okay.
Then it's just checkmating 3.
So there's
Just
many ways for black to win here.
according to the spirit of that era, you have
Yeah.
to sacrifice a queen now.
Yeah. So queen takes h3 check. G takes h3. Rook takes h3. King g2.
Check.
Check.
Check queen d6.
Bishop d6. Right.
And now move with the king.
There's probably going to be many ways to win at this point too, but I'm sure that there are many wins for black here. Like king f7 is probably also good. Rook h1 though, you have to check that kind of stuff. Rook h1, then rook g8, rook g5 is made. So I'm sure king f7 is also a win, but he first checked here.
Then
King
King
F7.
f7,
E7.
yeah. E7.
king e7. Yeah,
King d7. E7 is probably better.
yeah. He didn't do either of those as far as I remember.
Rook F4.
Yeah, you can.
He did this one. I'm sure there's also various ways here as well. I mean, king f7 is threatening rook f4 mate, and if d3 rook h5 and rook g4. Okay, so if d3 rook g8, no, I don't know. Then rook h1.
Rook F4.
I'm sure there's knight d4 also.
Rook F4 working?
Yeah, rook f4 is a threat. Have to play d3 here. That's why.
Yeah, you can play d3, then rook g8,
Rook g8. Yeah.
and then knight d4 checkmate.
Yeah, knight d4 and rook h5 are both threats. So this was also a win.
Too much food.
So, but he preferred rook h5, forcing the king even. His aesthetic sense was very good this day, because he knew his opponent wasn't going to go back down with king g4, because then rook g5 and mate on the h file, right? King g6. So king was going to go further up the board. What now? Again, the rook is hanging this, so there's probably less ways to win, but
Rook G5.
rook g5, okay. So king went to h6, because if king f6, then
King E7.
bishop e7 mate. Or sorry, king e6 and then knight d4 mate, right?
Rook e5.
Or rook e5, whichever you prefer. Yeah.
Then choose
Yeah. King h6. So king. He actually chose this one. King f7 is also good, but he chose this one. And then now king f7. Rook h1.
and bishop g7.
Bishop g7.
No mercy.
And apparently white resigned, which was just real unfortunate. You should have played it out until checkmate in the spirit of the times.
Was it one more move? Was
But-
it one move to checkmate?
Queen f3.
Yeah, it's 2 moves. Yeah, it's 2 moves till checkmate. Queen f3 and then it's checkmate. But yeah, queen f3 would not be in the spirit of the times. Okay, so we've done those. So now let's see a couple of problems. This one is okay. I'm going to quickly get rid of. Okay. So this is black played this move. This is the game Mason versus Winawer from Vienna, 1882.
Probably James Mason, the first chess book I ever bought.
Yeah, James Mason, I think. Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, and Winawer is, well, we've seen in the last hour the Winawer variation, which is he was a player of the Romantic era. Black played rook f6. White has, what, 2 pawns more, if I can count right? 2 pawns more. White's up 2 pawns. But on f5, the pawn is hanging. The knight on c5 is looking pretty solid. How does white win here? How are we going to break through and break into black's position? After queen f5, black's going to get some counter-attacking ideas also. Maybe coming in, queen f1, rook, I don't know. So I can't hear if everyone's talking at once in really quiet voices. So someone needs to raise their hand. Yeah?
What's wrong with
What's that?
Rook G5.
Rook takes G5? Yeah, Rook G5, okay. That's what he played. But we have to see the follow-up. Black takes. And now what?
Queen H7.
Queen H7.
Queen F7 is
So if King D8, Queen H8, right? Sorry, if King D8, we take first on B8. Well, either way you can do it. But so King D8 is either Queen H8 or take first on B8 and then Queen H8, and you take the rook, and White's then up 3 pawns with a winning attack. So, however, Black's going to block with his knight. How does White play now? Sorry, what's... anyone? Any ideas? Yeah?
Rook takes rook.
Rook takes rook, okay. If rook takes rook, then if I play that move, I think it's going to show the right move. So I don't want to... So rook takes rook,
King takes.
king takes. Remember, it's a whole rook that's been sacrificed.
Bishop takes D7.
Bishop takes D7, so the king is... the queen is overworked, right? Covering B8 and D... Rook takes, then king takes, and if bishop takes, the queen moves maybe somewhere like to take C3, for instance, and it's not so clear, at least, right? White has some pawns for the exchange, but maybe even queen takes queen, but king B6, but it's not as good. So we just take with the king, but much better is bishop takes D7, right? That's what he did. So if queen takes D7, then we can trade queens and take on B8, which would be 3 pawns up. Okay, it's going to be 2 pawns after black takes on F5, but that's still going to be enough. White will see C4 and then take the A pawn on A3, and still then again be, if I'm counting right, or I was counting right, it would be 3 pawns. Yeah. Anyway, so black played queen G8. So now white's down the exchange still. It's got a couple pawns for it, but how do we win here?
Queen E7.
Queen E7 is good, then rook F7.
Rook C4.
Rook C4, yeah. And then king moves somewhere, and then white takes on D6. I mean, king B7, bishop C6, check, double, yeah. Queen E7 is also good, but actually after queen E7, probably I don't want to play the move because it's going to show. So queen E7, there's also queen F7, and then again rook C4, king B6.
And queen takes D6.
Hmm?
Wait, yeah, there, rook F7, and queen C4, or rook C4.
Yeah, white could even trade queens here, have a couple pawns for the exchange, but there's actually a much clearer. We can go back to queen E7. I don't want to start entering the moves in because it's going to show the solution in the little box that's going to pop up. This is the whole point, is to see the solution. Queen E7 is, I think, pretty good for white. Queen F7, rook C4, king B6, and then queen takes E4, and if queen takes D7, we have queen D4 check, right? But black doesn't have to take on D7. Basically, white's winning. He has 3 pawns for the exchange and a continuing attack. It's completely winning, actually. But there's better, and what he played was better. White could even trade queens and then play bishop E6, and white should win that, right? Here, for instance, you're going to pick off the E4 pawn and have 3 pawns, or maybe even 4 for the exchange, 4 pawns for the, no. Yeah, 4 pawns for the exchange, that's just winning. So this is a problem with a lot of these old games, there's just big flaws, but there's a better move, actually, technically better than that, and also more beautiful.
And trading queens.
Then trading queen. Better move than queen takes G8, bishop E6, and then rook takes E4, which would be a slow and steady win. Not even that slow, actually, but yeah?
Rook D7.
Rook B7, yeah. Rook B7. Okay. Rook to B7. If rook takes, white takes the queen, and then after king takes D7, queen G7, right? Black can't protect both rooks, or either the rook on f6. So he took with the king, and now, yeah.
Bishops.
Let him say it. Says I. Yeah. I can't hear you. What? Bishop c8. Yeah, very good. Bishop c8. Bishop c8. And that cuts off the king from the queen. Double check, right? Black played this. Of course, if he took, then white would take the queen and then also fork the rook. So he went here, and white took the queen, and black played this move. As clever as possible, but he's losing now, of course. He was already losing, but he's definitely losing now. This is easier than the exchange down ending for 4 pawns, or the exchange down ending with 3 pawns in an attack. Both possible, right? But this is queen d8, yeah, threatening mate, black protected, but now queen d7.
Why not D8?
Oh, queen e8, you say?
Yeah, E8.
Yeah, it might also,
It's just checkmate.
yeah. Then
It's like the real checkmate.
queen e8, then I guess, yeah, that's probably better, right? Well, there's rook b, yeah, no, yeah, queen e8, of course, is stronger. He played queen d8. It doesn't matter. It's still winning. And now he played queen d7.
He made the same with 2 moves.
Yeah, he did the same thing in 2 moves. But it's okay, whatever. It's check on, still winning. Black did this. Well, queen e8, I guess there was check on b1 and then rook e5. But of course, white's winning then. And there's check on c6 and then take on d6, or if king a7, queen a6, king b8, queen d6, and pick up the rook. Anyway, it doesn't. It's winning either way. So did this, and then black did that, but now check. He took here. Protected. Did that. Protected g2 and a2, everything guarded. Desperate move. And bishop c4 next. So that was that. Okay, we got time for one more. Okay, still. So that was. Okay, this was the great Bird, Henry Edward Bird, against Berthold English, from London, 1883. Here, can anyone imagine what's going to happen? Anyone tell me what's going to happen? It's white's. Actually, it's black to move. White's actually got some activity as an extra pawn, but it's sort of meaningless. But it's easy to imagine in a practical game black losing this position somehow, even if it's technically just a little bit better for white, because got active rooks, the knight is stuck on e8. There's some mating ideas possibly coming up. Black played rook g5. Can anyone tell what might happen here? You see what white's going to do?
Yeah, I've seen the game.
Oh, you've seen the game. Okay, then don't tell people. Yeah?
Rook takes c8.
Rook takes c8, knight takes f6, and white's winning, right? That's what's going to happen. Anyone see that? What's the boomerang to that? So rook takes c8. What does black play? That's what he did. Rook takes c8. Now, to be fair, it might be a reasonable practical attempt, because here white doesn't have actually any advantage. For instance, we're not going to protect our knight with king h3, right?
Rook H5 check.
I mean, if king h3, rook h5 is mate. So we'd have, if white saw what black was going to do after rook takes e8, trying to play for a win would still be, you'd have to retreat one of the rooks or the knight or something like that, and realistically, the chances of a win are not too high. So even if he saw what black was going to do, which apparently he didn't, but even if he did see it, it was a reasonable practical attempt. So what does black play here? Takes the rook? No. First we have to insert the check. It's very important. King g1, and now it has to take the rook, right? Looks like black's got himself even into bigger problems, because now his rooks are forked, and if before, of course, if just to go back in case you don't see, here knight takes f6, the point is checkmate on h7 is a threat, and also the rook is hanging. And this is covered now, so black can't. But it looks like after check first, black got himself even into bigger trouble. But I think we see what's going to happen now. What does black play? Yeah?
Rook to E1 check.
Huh?
Rook to E1 check.
Rook E1, king F2. If I enter it again, it's going to show the right move. Rook E1, king F2. And then what happens then? Check on F5. You're right. That's still enough for a draw. Right?
Not sure.
Yeah, the two pawns is a draw.
Must be only one correct.
No. Rook E1, king F2. Okay, I'll come back to it. If I enter it, it's going to pop up with a little button. It's going to show.
Probably correct is Rook
The
H1.
Rook H1 is the most correct.
H1, Rook F.
Rook E1.
No, this is Rook H.
This is immediate stalemate, right? The double kamikaze rooks. Okay. But it's interesting because I didn't look at the game very critically. Rook E1, king F2, Rook F5 check. We don't have to do any kamikaze rooks this time. King takes, Rook takes. It's just a draw because doubled pawns, one pawn is a draw, double pawns also. It doesn't make a difference. All black has to do is just stick his rook on the back rank and move back and forth because it's G pawns. If it was F pawns or E pawns, it would also be a draw, but black would have to use a Philidor method. With G pawns, all he has to do is just, whatever white does, he just sits back there. Rook just sits on the back rank, and there's no way white can play for a win because there's no room on the further beyond the H file.
Comes on a 3, king comes forward.
Doesn't matter.
Second pawn doesn't come with.
The second pawn doesn't make a difference.
With
Okay, I'm gonna do if I can figure out how this sets. Let's just make. I would set up the position, but I would say, how do I set up the position?
S.
How do I set up a new position from here?
Just press S.
S?
Yeah.
Well. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, good. So what do you want? As far as possible, like this?
Like this. No. Second pawn is back.
Here?
Somewhere. And we're just somewhere we'll try to exchange rooks. If it's possible. And win the pawn endgame.
Oh, so you want to do like. But how are you gonna? So you're gonna do this first. But I'm gonna leave my king here when you have this. Okay. Let's set up. Let's start with this position. Start with this. Is you okay with that?
Yeah. No. This is probably draw. Yeah? I was thinking of pawn on g5.
Okay. Put the pawn on g5. But it.
Oh, I don't know.
Oops.
I'm just trying to imagine it.
So pawn on g5. No,
Like all this.
I'm going to leave my king here first of all. You can chase it to h8, but you have to play rook check first. So okay, this position. You want to play this one? I mean, you can always get to any position. So let's say that from here. Okay. I mean, pawn on g4 isn't going to help you, right? So let's start with g5. I think I got it white to move here. I understand you want to go, when the king's on h8, you want to go rook f8, check, and g7 check, force the trade, and this is guy's back on g2, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You can stay with rook.
Not to mention the fact that black could have still used Philidor method, and it's well known that the two pawns, it makes no difference. But g6, okay.
Okay. Out here.
So you want to check and force the king here, and then go here, threaten rook f8, but I just go back.
Right.
Yeah. If you try to go back with a rook, I wait, and if you try to go g7, then I check, If you throw rook on f6, oops.
If you get the pawn far enough, the other G pawn far enough where you can block the check.
So like
Like
you
if
play
second
G4,
pawn will be on g5 already.
Okay. But this is going to have to be black to move, though, or white to move. Yeah, I guess white to move. We can. Well, g7.
But you can just like play.
yeah, you can just play
No, like that. Sort of. Rook is on 7th file somewhere, and two pawns g6, g5.
So you want this,
Yeah, and rook is on 7th.
and this is here, and it's white's move.
No,
Let's make it white's move.
rook will be on a7, let's say.
a7.
Yeah, and we play g7 here.
Okay, white's move. g7.
Uh-huh.
Check.
And sacrifice. Yeah, and a stalemate.
No, I mean, let me just. I mean, I might be because let's put the rook here, but and this like that, and it's let's say it's white to move and go g7. We threaten rook f8. So black has to avoid that, you know.
No, this was
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one that black has to avoid. But
finally we found something else.
yeah. But you know, I won't let that happen. So I mean, if you go rook f6, I go rook a7. So well, actually, then you go rook b6. Yeah, well, I could be completely delusional here, and that this pawn actually makes a difference. In that case, we use the Philidor method. Still, we would just put the rook on the sixth rank, and then it's a well-known draw. So, okay, okay, and enjoyed this, and okay.
Put it on 6.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work here. We are ready to exchange rooks.
Yeah, this
I
is.
can break through 6 file.
Yeah. No, not here, of course. Yeah, this has gone too
I
far.
mean, if you will try to use the method.
From the starting position?
No. The method. Which
No, here this position. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you put the rook on
I
the.
mean, we can break through 6 file just threatening the.
I feel kind of stupid. I mean, but I mean, let's say you got. I mean, the Philidor position is very simple. You just.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
that Philidor position.
Oh, of course it's simple.
is about okay.